Hey, huge shout out to Little Mobcraft. I just realized they're like a major league YouTube creator. They've got 1 million+ subscribers, and they've been hanging out here with us for the Nefty Show. So, cheers, man. Super exciting day for the Nefty Show. Obviously, everybody knows we're pretty new for this channel. I've been super stoked about it. Joshua Cantrell is our first guest. Joshua is the mind behind Apex Conquest, which we're going to get into. Our friend Bull Shipples from over at the Shipple community let us know about Apex Conquest, and now the Uplift is on there, and hopefully Nefty's going to get some stuff going on. Tons of projects on Wax. That's my favorite thing about it. I'm gonna let you talk about it in a second here, Joshua, but like it at the very highest level, like I'm a complete moron level. Um, you know, all these different projects get to have an NFT that's a commander, and you have to buy troops to stake with your commander. You buy those troops with all of the tokens of the projects that are associated with Apex Conquest. So it's all of them. So you can do it with Lithium, you can do it with Shipple, you can do it with Nefty. There's I don't know, like 3 dozen now, Joshua.
Yeah, we're approaching 30. We did have to remove one for the first time. So that may happen again in the future if projects stop working. But with Million on Mars officially shutting down next week, we have
Million on Mars is shutting down.
That's what I was told. So yeah,
wow.
we removed their Dusk token, but yeah, we're around 27, I think.
That's crazy. What a weird time to be shutting down. Huh. All right. Well, yeah. I don't make the rules. So yeah, I guess Joshua, like we want to kind of make these conversations tight. I used to run shows, in Web3, and we'd talk for like a gazillion hours. So we're trying to be a little bit more concise. But yeah, so is there anything else? Like maybe give us your sort of top line description of Apex Conquest, how it works, how people can get involved.
Yeah. So I mean, the idea is simple. The execution becomes a little more complicated, but the simple fact, you already kind of gave a really good overview, right? You get a commander NFT, and we have our own native commanders that were dropped way back when. There's not any more being minted, so you can get one from secondary, or you can get one of the PFPs from partner collections. We've got a ton of options now. I think there's like 5,000 or something. It's pretty wow. It's pretty significant, the amount of templates that are possible. All the V-Punks, all the V-Bots, a lot of Alien Worlds.
Actually, I had two. Yeah, I had 2 showed up from way back in the day.
Yeah.
I had a couple show up from Alien Worlds. That was fun.
Yeah. So you start with that.
Possible to make Betsy a commander?
Absolutely.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get the details afterwards, because we can definitely do that. Any cool. PFP is really easy to use, especially PFPs, because the PFPs are really cool to use because each one is kind of unique. And so, especially if they've been done the right way, where it's just a single template with variable names and pictures and things like that, that makes it easy. Some older PFP collections have every single PFP as a unique template. That one's a little harder for us, but we do have the ability to support it. Going back and looking at like V-Bots, for example, it's an older PFP on Wax, and they do have each V-Bot as its own template, and there's like 10,000 of them. So we support them all. So there's a lot of work to do that, but we can, so that's not a problem. Shout out to Victor and our developer partners, that they make all the magic work. But anyway, yeah, so you gave us that high level, the PFPs, a commander, they're always safe, right? So there's no issues. Troops, on the other hand, you alluded to the troops. Troops are not safe, right? You need exactly 10 troops to go with the commander to form their little strike force. All right, and those troops are obtained. Obviously, secondary is always there. It's Wax, but
they're all NFTs. Each one of the troops, yeah.
Right. So it's easy to get them on secondary too, but you can always mint them on our site for approximately 10 Wax worth of any of our connected partner tokens, which includes, like you said, Nefty has been supported for a long time. TLM, we've got Liftium, we've got with Woof dropping, we've got them supported. They're already ready to go. You'll be able to buy troops with Woof the second you have your Woof.
Awesome.
It's already in game.
Oh wow! Are they going to do an NFT as well?
I don't know yet. I've been talking to them a little bit. They're not 100% sure, but because they don't have any NFTs yet. But if they, if they do a Woof PFP or something, I could see that happening. Then we would definitely want to support it, stuff like that. I have a number of other artists and things. I'm sure we'll have plenty more coming.
That's cool.
But once you've got your troops, you need 10 troops and a commander, and you can stake as many decks as you want, right? Some people have 1 or 2, and all the way up to, you mentioned Shipples, he's probably got 100 decks, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He's obsessed. But I mean, that's how we've always done everything, right? Like we were in on the Our Planet thing fairly early on, and made an ungodly amount of money early on in that last bull market. So we've kind of always been obsessed with stuff like this. I really love this because, with Our Planet, everybody knew right off the bat, like if you're just increasing inflation exponentially, sooner or later, the hangover is going to come, right? Whereas with this, it's like all these community tokens, right? And please let me know if I'm wrong about this, but it seems like, okay, so I bought a bunch of troops with Liftium once that went live, right? And all of that Liftium went into the pool where when you battle with your Strike Force, you get to hit any of these pools that you want, right? So like the Liftium pool had like about 1,000 wax worth of Upliftium in it for the first little bit. I'm pretty sure Bullshit will smack the crap out of that all night because it was a little bit less the next day. But like, so anytime I buy troops with Liftium, it's going in that pool, and everybody can then hit that pool to try and pull some of that Liftium out. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's when we were originally designing this, I was the designer from the beginning. I wanted a game that wasn't generating so much of its own tokens, that it just was, Wax has got enough of their own their own tokens, right? That we just every collection adds 1, or some collections are adding 5 or 10 tokens. I mean, we're guilty of it over at Castles because I'm a developer over there too. We've got a lot of tokens. It's part of the game, but at the same time, I really wanted to create a game that used other games' tokens. And obviously, we're not the first or only collection to do that, but I think we are the first to do it on the scale that we're doing it with. And we've been playable since August of 2022. Technically, we just it's been kind of a slow burn for us. But yeah, I mean, back
just
then
found out recently.
Yeah, I mean it's the freaking bear market for you. Hey, I mean that's
exactly. We launched in a bad time, right? Everything was like hitting rock bottom at the time.
If you can launch then and like just keep the ship going, I mean, all we could really do with Uplift, because I ended up having to go get a day job or whatever, but we kept the servers going the whole time. They were still playable. Everything worked. So we, managed to just kind of weather it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys have been, developing something really cool and are in a very interesting position kind of early on in this bear market or bull market. I mean,
can you add a little bit about the strategies? Because I also see that there are some strategy NFTs. What are those? How should you use them?
Is it the tactics?
Tactics,
yeah.
Sorry.
I saw some of those too. Bullshipples wouldn't tell. He just sent me one. He's like, "Hey, welcome to the rabbit hole." I'm like, "What the crap is this?" He's like,
"Yeah. Okay, so the tactics change the rules a little bit, right? That they're not necessarily trying to completely break your brain, but some of them do. To be fair, there's 1 or 2 of them that really do break the rules in a big way, but most of them are relatively subtle. We have for example, there's a tactic called balanced formation. And if you have at least 3 pikemen and at least 3 archers in your deck, in your strike force, then it gives you an additional 5% success chance and a little bit extra loot, right? So it rewards you for keeping that deck balanced. On the other hand, you have a tactic like pack pikes, which just adds additional carrying capacity, which is the amount of loot that they return with. To every pikeman in the deck, it adds 1. So now you're rewarded instead for making an entire deck of pikemen, which are normally very bad at carrying stuff, but they're good at success. They're good at winning. Now they're twice as good at carrying back loot. So that's pretty great. And then you have the extremely basic ones like backpacks, which is just a very simple +5 carrying capacity to your deck. Everybody loves that one because you can add it to every deck that you want and don't even have to think about it because it's just +5. Cool. And then you've got the complicated ones like Careful Approach, which give you 5% less success and 5 less carrying capacity, which makes it so you win less often, you get less loot, but you also have a -1 to the amount of troops you can lose in every battle. So your sustainability increases even though your individual successes are lower. So it's a very interesting one. And then you have the absolutely bat crap crazy one. I think it's called Maniac. And it reverses your deck, right? All your carrying capacity becomes attack, and all your attack becomes carrying capacity. It completely flips all the cards on their head. And that the rules are broken. Now you do something entirely different. So that one definitely very wildly changes your strategy. But each one just adds a little bit of flavor. We have some other stuff coming with our next update with the fortresses. You can see my background here. We'll have a new set of tactics that are going to release around the same time, or maybe very shortly after. If we drop it all at once, it makes it harder to identify bugs. Anybody with development background understands the slow rollout concept, but we'll have some more. But right now, I think we have something like 12 tactics, if I remember correctly. So there's definitely some decent little options.
That's awesome. So, question: do they stack?
So no, each deck can only use one, but each deck can use their own, right? So the tactics cards themselves, you just pick one deck, you assign a tactic to it, and that's it.
So I think I haven't assigned any tactics to my decks yet. That's dumb. I should fix that. I thought just having them was going to do it. So I'm learning right now. Yay. This is good.
Well, I mean, yeah, some of them would be fully incompatible with each other. I mean, especially the Maniac one and things like that. Some of them are
right.
Some of them really would mess you up if they worked that way.
True.
And if you had too many Careful Approaches stacking, you would never have any losses, but you would also never win.
You'd also never win. Makes sense. All right. So is there any plans to do any more tactics drops, or do you just want those running on secondary?
So right now, the only way to obtain tactics, you actually still can get new ones, but they're obtained by playing the game. Something that we implemented, they're quite rare, but something that we implemented a long time ago was the concept of victory and loss points. And these allow you to redeem NFTs in addition to what you're doing with your commanders. And so when you win, you get a victory point. When you lose, you get a loss point. Pretty straightforward. The loss points are focused mostly on getting you potentially a commendation or a troop pack. If you lose a lot, which happens, unfortunately, to newer players who are not necessarily as adept at putting their decks together right away.
Me too.
So you lose a lot at first. As you're getting used to the game, your strategy isn't really there yet. You lose a lot. The loss points just help you a little bit. You can potentially get a free commendation back. At least you get to restore your morale. Or you get a troop pack, which saves you a little bit of wax. Things like that. The victory points, on the other hand, a little less focus on troops and commendations. They're still there, but a little less. Instead, with the victory points, you've got a low chance of getting one of our native commanders. And you also have a low chance of getting a tactics pack. And so you can get those tactics back, but you've got to play the game in order to get them now.
All right. So, well, okay, one thing I wanted to touch on, just because, again, I think anything that you're using the sort of community tokens for, I find deeply fascinating, right? So the commendation thing, you're running a deck. I don't know how many it is, like 5 or 6 or 10, or I don't know how many it is, but they'll get tired. And then you need to buy one of these commendation things to basically make your deck active again. And these commendation NFTs are actually buyable with all of the tokens as well, right?
Yep, it's the same thing. They go into the same place. It's just if anybody's familiar with castles, we have a recharge function for our crafters and things like that. And this was kind of a similar concept. We knew that we needed some kind of maintenance fees, especially for players who get really adept with the strategy. They end up having low troop losses, and they're just hammering day in, day out, and winning a lot. We still need something that requires them to put something back into the pools. Very cyclical nature of the game. You're withdrawing tokens by winning, and then you need to add new troops to your deck because you had some losses. And then once per week is the idea, because you have 7 charges on your morale. Once per week, you recover your morale for your deck, and they're ready to go for another week. We do give everybody, when you stake a new commander, whether it's one of ours or from a partner collection, you start at full morale. So essentially, you're getting that week for free, but you do have to restore morale in order to withdraw your commander and your deck. So you get your free week, but once you run out, if you get to 0 out of 7, you can't battle anymore, and you decide, hey, I don't really enjoy the game, you do at least have to spend 1 commendation to fill that morale and withdraw the commander.
Got it. I like it.
Cool.
Man, so I definitely didn't realize that you sort of needed to build out your tactics per deck. That's interesting for sure.
And the supply of the tactics cards that are available, there's not a ton of them out there. And some of them are pretty rare. There's some pretty powerful ones. And because the supply is low, I mean, even though we went through a kind of a dry period, with the bear market, everybody kind of did. The supply of tactics cards wasn't very high, so the rare ones never really fell in price. People were like, "Hey, I'm keeping this.
That's cool.
You can't get these from me."
Can you tell me about the demolition expert? That tactic.
Yeah. So that's the one that increases the grenadiers, but also increases your losses, right?
Right. I think so. Yeah.
Let me double check the exact wording on it. I just want to make sure that I don't give you wrong information. I've got it on my white paper here. Okay. Yes. Okay. It works exactly the way I thought. I just wanted to double check. Okay. So that the demolition tactic, it increases the attack power or success rate. I mean, that's basically what that amounts to for each grenadier in your deck, but also makes the deck subject to a single additional loss possible. Not actually, I think it might even be a minimum loss. Yes, minimum.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was.
It's not
gonna lose.
It doesn't increase the maximum, but it does introduce. Normally, the minimum is 0. It bumps that minimum to 1 instead of 0. And so, what this would do for a deck, the idea. This is just throwing this out there for anybody, right? This is the least popular of the tactics cards. Just so everyone's aware, it is the lowest value.
That's why
most people don't love it, right? But the purpose of it, it's not without purpose, right? The purpose of this, if you staked an entire deck of grenadiers and this tactic, you would have a 70% chance to win, even on the newest commander with no experience whatsoever. That's much higher than a normal new user can achieve. Normal new users are trying to have like a balanced deck, and they're going to have, something like 40-40 is a pretty normal, or like high 30s, mid 40s, 37, 45. A lot of people are always trying to, a lot of people focus on that carrying capacity for good reason. That's how you get tokens back. But it is not a great strategy in the long term as far as farming the victory points and also growing your experience of your commander. Because as your commander gains experience, they gain a multiplicative bonus to their success and carrying capacity.
I
Right?
didn't.
So
Can you tell me everything about that? This is entirely new to me. This is so much fun.
so,
Juan, I'm so glad that Juan started playing too, because we haven't really messed with anything in a long time. So now we're just like, I'm a sponge. Just give me all the things. Also, huge hello. TC's in the comments. He's one of my favorite humans on the face of the earth. I'm glad he's watching. Cheers.
Okay, so let's finish this tactic, and then I'll keep going in that same line. So this tactic with the demolition, what's the exact name? The demolition expert. Okay, making sure I have the name right. Demolition expert. If you have a full deck of grenadiers, it's actually a pretty good tactic.
Okay.
You don't really want to use it if you don't have a full deck of grenadiers, because you still get the penalty without getting as much of the bonus, right? So if you only got 2 in your deck, it's pretty bad to use,
right?
Because it only benefits those grenadiers. But if you have a full deck of them, you would have a 70% win chance. However, you would always lose at least 1, and of course, still potentially up to 4 losses. So.
And it's basically like the way I didn't know this either. So it's basically like around 10 wax, because all the tokens are going to change price variability. So there's no way to track this sort of ongoing. Interesting arbitrage potential on that, though. I don't want to do the math, but that's just occurring to me. So basically, like every troop that you lose, it's around a wax. Is that accurate, or like a good way to think about it? Like 1 wax?
Yes. Well, okay. I mean, it depends. So you get 4 troops for 10 wax. So realistically, they're worth more like 2.
Got it.
2 each, approximately. But on the other hand, it's never so static, because within the pack there are 6 different types of troops, and some are more desired than the others, right? So you have the scouts and the horse carts and the archers, which are generally what people desire most. And so you have grenadiers, honestly, even though they have the highest success chance, they have very low carrying capacity. They only have 1.
Right.
And like I already said, most players are biased towards carrying capacity, and so they don't value the grenadiers very much. So those guys are usually obtainable for less than average, right? So that whereas you'll never find your scouts and your horse carts are like 3+ wax usually to buy them individually. The grenadiers may gravitate towards more like 1.3, 1.5. Right.
Sure.
So it becomes an interesting strategy to potentially either trade or pluck those off a secondary. That's a whole discussion for another time. The rabbit hole goes deep, right? It definitely can. It certainly can. But anyways, with this, you can win more often, right? That's the long story short. You can lose more troops. On average, you definitely lose more troops. It doesn't increase the maximum you can lose, though. So you can you could already lose up to 4 troops in a single battle.
Right. That's what I was going to ask. So it doesn't really change your probability. It's like I would say well more than half the time I'm going to lose at least 1 anyway. Right. So if it's not changing the percentage loss, then it's really just sort of you're definitely going to lose 1, which might be like half the time. But then you get these other advantages, which is interesting.
Yeah. And so let's talk about experience, right? So because that's the thing that was interesting, and I'm sure that it's not just you guys. I've actually had a lot of people asking me about this stuff, like how do you make the game profitable as a new player? I can't figure it out. I seem to be losing more than I'm gaining, and there's more variables than most players can see right away. And it's all in the white paper, but it is a pretty chunky white paper. It's fairly math heavy. I mean, it's a white paper. It is what it is. But the variables can be a little complicated. So when you win, let's just start with some baselines. When you win, you always gain experience. It's usually just 1 point, right? So you gain an experience point. Experience points are essentially levels, though, in the game. So you don't you gain a benefit for every single point, right? So you've got 1 point. That 1 point is benefiting you. Once you get to 10, all 10 points are benefiting you. It's not like break points. Well, every 5 points you get something. It's every single point is valuable. When you win, you get an experience. You gain tokens. That's the really obvious thing. Everybody sees that. And you gain a victory point, which, victory points can be a little less obvious. We tried to put them in a prominent place. And obviously, when we introduced them, we talked about them a lot. But for newer players, it's maybe not immediately intuitive. So I'm glad to talk about it right now. We probably need to do another, like a quick demonstration guide to walk people through this stuff too, because we had a video way back when, but it's outdated. So we need a new one. When you lose, okay, so sorry, one last thing. When you win or lose, you may lose troops, right? But the reason I want to talk about it is there is a difference on how many troops you lose based on whether you win or you lose. Victory comes with an additional penalty in that you can lose more troops. Okay, so when you win, you may lose as much as 4 troops. That's the absolute worst that can happen, is that you lose 4 troops. When you lose, the absolute maximum of troops that you can have die is only 2. So losses are inherently less painful because of that. And it is a range from 0 to 4 or 0 to 2. So even on a victory, assuming you're not using Demolition Expert, you can lose nothing. But it's much more common when you lose a battle to lose no troops, because it's 0, 1, or 2 versus 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 on a victory.
Right.
Okay. So there's that information, and that was a change that we made fairly early on. It used to be just 0 to 4 for both victory and loss, but the player base begged us to change that because losses were feeling too brutal. So we relented on that change. So that's just kind of something that we gave back to the players. We adjusted. Okay, so let's talk about experience, because when you lose, you do gain a loss point instead of a victory point, which is helpful. But the major difference, other than the troop losses, which we already talked about, the major difference is you don't gain any experience when you lose. It just stays. You don't lose anything, but you also don't gain any. So if you had 0, you still have 0. If you have 10, you still have 10. Experience is a big deal. What the formula looks like, essentially, is for every point of experience, you get a 0.5% multiplicative bonus to your success and a whole % bonus to your carrying capacity, right? So what that looks like is, if you have, just to give you the example math, if you have 20 experience, then you have a 10% success chance bonus. It's multiplicative, not additive. So, whatever your deck is, it's 10% of whatever the stats are. So if you had 40 base success chance with 20 experience, that 40 is now 44. Okay. And that scales all the way up to 100. That's the break point. And it didn't used to have a break point. We introduced that pretty recently. You can gain experience beyond 100, but it doesn't do anything. And we've got some new systems that are coming very soon that will allow you to either transfer experience or spend experience for some other rewards. So once you're beyond 100, it's not useless. You'll just have other uses for it. But at 100 experience, following the math, right, you would gain a 50% multiplicative bonus to your success chance and 100% bonus to your carrying capacity. So what that looks like, right? So say you had that 40-40 deck, right? That's that average carrying capacity kind of balanced deck. You've got a 40-40. Now that 40-40 is instead a 60, because you're getting 50% bonus on the front end. There's a 60% chance to succeed. And the carrying capacity, instead of 40, it doubles. It's 80. So now that 40-40 deck is a 60-80 deck, which those numbers are not obtainable with the troops alone. Right? They just
Right.
aren't. You can't get to those numbers with the troops. You require experience to get that powerful. Now, before experience had a cap, we have some players who've been playing ever since when we originally launched in August. They have some commanders with over 300 experience at this point.
So that's something I wanted to ask. So each one of the commanders is getting experience on their own then?
Yes.
So it's independent. Like if I got a commander a few weeks ago, it's going to have more experience than the one that I have today.
Yes. And if you buy them off of secondary, our native commanders, they keep their experience. If somebody unstakes, the experience transfers. Now, any of our PFP partners, right, we don't have the ability to write to their NFT. Right? I mean, you guys understand that concept. Not everybody does. Right. Some people are like, "Why can't you write to an NFT?" I'm like, "No, you don't want me to be able to."
That's true. But hey, for the Betsy ones, couldn't you set up a new blend so that commander had that new updatable attribute on your system? Not that you have to do this. I'm just like wondering systemically if that was even possible.
Yeah, maybe it's possible. It could even use the upgrade contract, I think, but it's something that we will have to configure. It's not something that Apex can do. We have to do it ourselves if we want to do something like that. And of course, we would have to agree on what's the attribute, because the same attribute has to be used in the game.
I definitely, I don't want to complicate things for Joshua. I was just sort of curious if I think that was possible.
Yeah, so only our native commanders can do that. But big caveat, okay? We have a system coming that will fix this problem. So what we are introducing fairly soon, next few weeks or so, we are going to have a bottled experience NFT, right? And this will allow you to subtract the experience from the deck, put it into an NFT, and then you can do whatever you want with that NFT. You can use that.
So if you're over 100, you could farm it.
Exactly. And we do expect, because well, no, I expect people to do that. Experience is very valuable. So you might say, hey, I love this PFP commander. Like, it's from my favorite collection. I love this commander. It's so much fun, but he's not as good experience as the native ones that have, I bought, let's say I bought one off of secondaries with 150 experience. He's my champ, right? Like, he's amazing because he's past the cap. So he's kicking butt. He's returning rewards. And also because of that, he wins more often. And so he's also farming experience. What do I do? Right. So you'll now be able to transfer some or all of that experience to another commander. And those can be anything, right? They can be the native commanders, they can be the PFP commander. And so once that system is there, the advantages it levels the playing field. Now, we do anticipate that when we're going to have a cost for bottling the experience. Obviously, we want, we're developers. We do have to pay our bills sometime. So there will probably be a minor wax cost, a couple wax, something like that, pretty small, to pull experience from one commander and put it on another. But we do expect that to be a new level to the game, where people start trading these bottled experiences and things like that. We think it's going to be really interesting. We're excited to see what players do with it.
Yeah, it's definitely sounds interesting. Sorry, I just realized that it's probably really noisy. So I mean, we're at however many minutes. Oh, we're already at a half hour. Okay, so let's let's close it out. It's our longest episode ever. We've been trying to keep it as relative. So you said it looks like, I think the fortresses or something are going to be dropping in the next week or 2 weeks. That's the next major update.
Yeah. So let me give you the brief version of what we're doing with those. And then, like you said, we're good for time, so we probably wrap it up. What the fortresses are, since you guys are newer, I'll just kind of give it the base. Yeah. What fortresses are is almost like a guild system in some ways, that we're introducing into the game. So somebody will be the owner, but this fortress can be leveled up. And we do have a native token in the game, which can only be obtained on the weekends because we wanted it to be that way. We wanted it to be,
Cool.
during the week you have to play with all the other tokens. On the weekends, you may optionally choose to a battle for our native token. And it's optional. You can still do the other tokens. But our native token will be usable to upgrade these fortresses. And they have 3 different axes that you can upgrade. The tower, the barracks, and the tactics office. The tower is the main thing that we expect most people to upgrade. It's going to give you a flat bonus to all your decks, success chance, just 1%, and it is flat, not multiplicative. So that's pretty powerful. The barracks is going to allow these NFTs that you see behind me, these mighty troops, which are more powerful than normal. You're going to be able to create those. And then the tactics office will allow you to manipulate some tactics, either create new ones or upgrade them into the new ones that we're creating. So that's going to be really interesting. But the long story, the big thing to know is your tower level also gives you the ability to invite additional wallets to be members of your fortress, right? That's the big thing. So for each level of your tower, you can add 1 wallet to the list. Now, the owner still is the one who controls the fortress. Obviously, no one else can unstake it. No one else can do anything, but the only thing they're able to do, they benefit from the levels, and they may donate fort token. When they donate the fort token, it sends it into the contract. It updates that deck. And then the owner may spend those fort tokens on upgrades. The owner can't withdraw them because obviously that could be very abused. I donated 1,000 tokens and the owner just says, haha, these are going in my pocket. That's not going to be possible at all. And the owner also cannot remove you from the fortress without paying you back anything you donated, right? So it's a very, we wanted it to be hard to abuse, right? That's the idea. But we do expect this to be a really cool system where, you've got your 5 best buddies that you all kind of play this game together. Only one of you has to buy a fortress, though. You may decide, hey, let's each have one and we can all put each other on our own fortresses. There are some things that do stack. The tower level bonus doesn't stack because obviously that would be very easy to abuse if that one could stack. But the other bonuses can add together. And it's in the white paper, so I don't want to go too in depth on that. But the main thing is, if you level your tower up to level 10, let's say by dumping a lot of fort in it, now you can have you and 10 friends all together in your fortress, all benefiting from the things that it can do, all getting, because it's level 10, everybody's getting a 10% flat success bonus. Chances are we'll put a cap on that bonus too. That may end up capped at 10 because obviously if a flat bonus, if we allow that to get too high, then everybody wins all the time, and that kind of breaks the game. We don't want to get to that point. But members the better, right? And this will be cool. We'll allow you to nickname your fortress and things like that. So you've kind of naming your guild, name your community. It should be really interesting. It should be really fun. We've got a system. It's basically done, but we've got a lot of testing before we release it. So so the long story short on the details, this week we're dropping the very first time we're going to be dropping these. They're not going to be ready to use immediately, but they will be ready. They are coming pretty soon. We're only going to drop 100 right now. They're $50 a piece. And they do come with a couple of bonuses. Each one of these is coming with we talked about tactics earlier. You're going to get a tactics card, just a random one of the existing ones. And you will get one of each of these mighty troops, which should be usable very, very soon. The templates are already ready. And these guys are extra strong troops, basically. They're extra powerful. They won't be obtainable in packs. You can only get them through fortresses. Essentially, you spend fort and you upgrade an infantry infantry troop into one of these random mighty troops, and they're much stronger. For example, the cannoneer has a 9 attack power base. He's a 9 with only 1 carrying capacity. So obviously using 10 of those would give you a 90% chance to win, but they would be pricey to fill a full deck, and you would lose them at the same time, right? They would be dying, which could potentially be a problem, based on how expensive they are. But if you're trying to supercharge your experience, then you might choose to do that, right? Some users might be like, hey, I'm going to stack my deck with these guys and pump experience, and that works.
Okay, so couple questions, and maybe Joshua, maybe you could come back and we could do like an updated how-to video, and we can maybe just have that on the channel for people to do, right? Like it's like no time limit. Because TC was asking if there's any online how-to videos. Does that exist now?
There are. I know that we had a pretty good video from Warrior Lion that was on YouTube. Okay. He did a pretty good video, but it's been a while, right? So our interface is really updated. There's a lot of different stuff. We definitely need a new how-to, right? So if there's any content creators that want to reach out and do something, we support that. Otherwise, obviously, I can do one. I'm just not, I'm a decent streamer, but not an amazing one, right? So content creator partners, come in, please. We would appreciate an updated how-to. And then just to answer, I see Dapper Gent's question in chat. How often can you battle? Right? We hadn't mentioned that. There is a daily reset time. It should be, I believe it's pegged to UTC 0, right? So whenever that time hits, you can battle with all your decks again. So it doesn't really matter. You can do all your decks battles 5 minutes before that reset, and then the reset hits, and then you can do them all, and then you don't have to think about it for 2 days basically, right? You can do that schedule, or you can just do it once a day whenever you feel like it, because they do reset every 24 hours at a fixed time. So you don't have to worry about, with castles, it works differently. With our other game, it's 24 hours from when you did it last, whereas this system is just a reset time.
Yeah, I like the 24-hour thing. That's not bad. So TC is saying that Dapper Gents should do it. So I definitely don't want to stand in the way of that. I'm sure he'll be freaking fantastic. So Dapper Gents, maybe just drop into the Apex Conquest Discord or whatever and chat with them about it. I'm excited to see that one. I'm sure I'll learn more as well. Cool.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy to answer questions and hang out and chat, and I can jump into a stream even, like we're doing right now. I'm happy to do it. As long as I have the time to schedule it. It'd be all good, and I'm happy to provide. We've always been happy to provide some troop packs for creators to do giveaways if they want to do a video on us. We'll throw some troop packs out there. That way, users can see the video and they can also win some troop packs and try the game out. Something that we didn't mention that I want to just make sure to throw out there: the game does provide everybody with an optional avatar commander. And it imports your profile picture from Atomic Hub. If you set a profile picture, it imports you, so you could put a picture of your own face into our game and play with yourself as your own commander if you're so inclined. And you can even give your car a nickname, whatever you want it to be, and you can play with that without even owning a commander. It does have some penalties if you don't own any commanders, so I don't necessarily recommend that for long-term play. But it does allow you to come in and try the game for a couple of days for essentially free. I mean, you do still need troops, but otherwise you don't need a commander at all. And it's cool. It's very interesting. It's something that we introduced a long time ago. It's pretty easy to use. Feel free to. It doesn't create an NFT. Some people get confused. They're like, "Hey, how do I withdraw this?" You can't.
Yeah.
Just in your account. It's just in your account. It's just tied to your wallet. So you can't withdraw it. It doesn't turn you into an NFT. I mean, anybody can take their picture and create their own NFT if they actually want to do that. But yeah, it's an easy way to get started. And the Avatar Commanders do have their own special bonuses too. So I highly recommend our white paper, or get in Discord and ask me, because we just hit 45 minutes and we could probably go forever. And I know we probably need to not.
No, thank you. Yeah, definitely get with Dapper and do that whole thing. And I can't wait to watch it. I love that TC's in here just yelling when he's excited. I get nostalgia flashbacks, and I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Joshua, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, anytime you guys are getting ready to drop something, come back on. We'll be happy to host you and let everybody know what, when, where, why, all those good things.
Sounds great.
Yeah. One last question here. For the castle drop, will there be a whitelist? Anybody can participate? How will that work?
So for this first pre-drop, there's not going to be a whitelist. We're hosting it on our own site, right? So we don't necessarily anticipate. We do expect, since there's only 100, it probably will sell out. But we're not going to whitelist or block this particular drop. There is a claim limit of 1 per wallet, with I think a 2-minute cooldown. Just for everyone's information, a single wallet cannot stake more than 1 fortress, right? So someone may choose to buy more than 1, because they're buying it for a friend or whatever the reason may be. You can buy more than 1, but each wallet can only, as the owner, you can be a member in many, but as the owner, you can only use 1 at a time. So
that's interesting that you could be a member in many of them, right? So that's what you're saying, as far as they can actually start to stack. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right.
And
go team.
Very interesting.
All right. So we're gonna be live again Juan and I tomorrow at 11 a.m. There is a lot of stuff going on. Bull Shipples at the Shipple community is launching a ton of farms. The Wolf Drop is happening. Juan and I are cooking up some crazy shit to do. So yeah, bull market is back, baby.
It's back. Yeah.
It's early days yet still. Great to see everybody. It's been fun. Joshua, thanks for coming on. We'll have you on again soon.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
ciao.
Guys.
Ciao.